Welcome to episode 186 of the Selling Your Screenplay podcast. I'm Ashley Scott Myers, screenwriter and blogger over at sellingyourscreenplay.com. Today I'm interviewing writer-director Joe Taylor. He recently did a short film which you can watch for free over at screeningnow.com. The film is called Last Call. He wrote and directed this film on a budget of around $4,000. This is the third installment of the short film showcase I've been doing, as each one of these short films showcases moves up the budget ladder. We had a $200 one, a $1,500 one, and now this is a $4,000 one. If you're thinking about writing and directing a short film, or eventually thinking about writing and directing a feature film, I think doing short films is a great first step towards doing a feature film. So if you're interested in doing and producing some of your own writing, this is a great episode for you to hear, and I think you'll get a lot out of it. So stay tuned for that interview. If you find this episode valuable, please help me out by giving me a review in iTunes or leaving a comment on YouTube or retweeting the podcast on Twitter or liking it on Facebook. These social media shares really do help spread word about the podcast, so they're very much appreciated. Any websites or links that I mention in the podcast can be found on my blog in the show notes. I also publish a transcript with every episode in case you'd rather read the show or look at something later on. You can find all the podcast show notes at www.sellingyourscreenplay.com/podcast, and then just look for episode number 186. I'm continually building out the SYS script library. Just in the last couple of weeks, we've added the screenplay for Manchester by the Sea, and that's was sent in to me by Piri Mystery. Thank you, Piri, for that. We also have the screenplays for Fences and Short Term 12. That was sent in by Franco Cardinello. So, Franco, thank you very much for sending those scripts in. If you have a screenplay that you do not see listed in the SYS script library, please do email it to me. This is all the SYS script library is something that we're building as a community. People email me scripts. I add them to the script library. Obviously, if I run into one, I add it to the script library. And I think at this point, we've got well over 1,000 scripts. There's hit movies. There's award winners. There's some television show episodes. So it's a pretty good gamut of stuff that's up there. Everything is in PDF format, so you can download and read them on whatever device you have, assuming you can read PDF format, which is a pretty standard format. If you want to check out the SYS script library, again, this is a completely free resource. You just go to sellingyourscreenplay.com/library. Just want to mention a free webinar I'm doing on Wednesday, August 9th at 10 a.m. Pacific time. It's called How to Effectively Market Your Screenplay and Sell It. I'm going to go through all the various online channels that are available to screenwriters and give you my unfiltered opinion of them. I get questions all the time about the Blacklist, Ink Tip, and various contests. So in this free webinar, I'm going to talk about my experience with them. Again, this webinar is completely free. Don't worry if you can't make it to the live event. I will be recording this event, so if you sign up for it and cannot attend the live event, you will get an email from me with the link to the recorded event after it happens. To sign up, just go to sellingyourscreenplay.com/free webinar. Again, that's sellingyourscreenplay.com/free webinar. The word free webinar is just one word, and it's all lowercase. I will, of course, link to it in the show notes as well. Also, if you're already on my email list, in other words, if you get my weekly emails, you don't have to sign up for this. I will be emailing everybody that's already on my list with all of the information for how they can attend as well. So again, if this sounds like something you'd like to learn about, just go to sellingyourscreenplay.com/free webinar. So a quick few words about what I'm working on. I'm back from about a 2-week vacation, although it was kind of a working vacation. I went to North Carolina to visit. I went with my family, my 2 daughters, my wife. We went to North Carolina to visit my parents, and I tried to keep working, maybe half days, Monday through Friday, half days, or at least quarter days, kind of keep things going. So I did get a couple of things done, some of which I'm going to talk about here in this section, but it was kind of a working vacation, but I'm back and now at it. Again, the main thing I'm working on is post-production for my crime action thriller feature film, The Pinch. Things are moving along slowly but surely. My composer, he has finished the score, so I've got that all completed. The sound designer, he is all finished with his portion as well. And my dialogue editor, I talked to him or emailed with him over the last couple weeks, and he was hoping to be done here in the next week or two, so that's coming to a close. And then the final piece of sound is getting the mixer to come in. It's what's called a remixer, and they mix all the, the score and the dialogue, the sound effects, the music. There's also just some songs. All that stuff has to be mixed together so that it's properly properly leveled out, and it has to be separated. We have to create what's called an M&E track, which is just music and effects, and that's so we can send the film to somebody without any dialogue whatsoever, and then they can potentially dub it. Like, you know, if you get a distributor in Germany, they might want to dub it into German, and so they need a version of the film without any speaking parts so that they can get their German actors to basically speak the parts in those spots. So that's the M&E track needs to be created, but the big piece is just mixing all this stuff together and getting that audio completed. I've only got a couple of special effects shots left, so I have 2 special effects artists working right now. I think the one effects artist, he's got 4 shots, which are basically the same shot. It's putting a sign onto a building, and it's the same sign in the same building, but it's 4 different angles. So it is 4 different effects shots, but it's very similar. So he told me he thought he could get it done in a week. So that should come to a close here this week, if not this week, certainly next week. And then my other effects guy is he's finishing up on some cover-up stuff. There's some logos and stuff that were in the background, which we don't really want to have, you know, branded logos in our film without the permission of those logo holders. So we're removing some of that. There's one shot where a light was plugged into the wall, and you can see the actor standing next to this big light, this big electrical cord coming out of the wall. So we're just going to digitally remove that, just clean it up a little bit. So he's got a couple of shots like that to do. And again, I think that will be wrapped up here in the next couple of weeks. So the effects are going well. My colorist, and this was actually the big thing I worked on, or I won't say even worked on, but reviewed while I was on vacation. My colorist sent me another pass of the film, and that's looking pretty good. It's very, very close. I had maybe a dozen notes, so I'm going to meet with him this week or next week and hopefully bring the color correction and the color to a close. It was more complicated than I thought. I've never been through this process with a colorist, but there's a lot to it. We shot the film in what's called this 4K RAW. We used a Blackmagic production camera, and it was this 4K RAW. So everyone kept telling me, oh, you can, you know, the image looks kind of flat when you shoot it in this RAW. Not sure exactly why of that, but supposedly the way the image is being captured, you've got it's recording a lot of color information. So then you put it through to your colorist, and your colorist can really make the colors pop. And indeed, he has done that. So it's starting to look really nice. You know, the reds are really vibrant red. And when you look, as I said, at just sort of the rough cut of the film, for some reason, they're very muted. The colors are very muted. And now, you know, the colorist is really bringing that out. So that's going well. You know, things always take longer than you hope, but I'm hopefully going to meet with him this week, and then we'll finish up that tweak. The effect shots have to be colored as well. So I've got to get these effect shots that I just mentioned. Those have to be completed, and then they render those little clips, and then my colorist has to go through in that. So it's not going to be 100% done with the color, but you know, just as these effect shots come in, hopefully we can get them colored. They're pretty easy to color because it's only just a few seconds of a shot. But bottom line is all that stuff is moving along slowly but surely. I want to mention a live webinar I'm going to be doing in August where I will go through all the steps to producing a micro-budget feature film. The webinar is called, of all things, The Pinch, Producing a Micro-Budget Feature Film. I'm going to do this online webinar on Wednesday, August 23rd at 10 a.m. Pacific time. I'm going to charge a small fee to attend, but if you're looking to produce your own micro-budget film, I think you'll get tremendous value out of this. I'm going to go through every aspect of production, how to write a micro-budget film script, how to raise money for your project, and then of course pre-production, production, and every aspect of post-production. As I close in on completion of my own micro-budget feature film, I think this is a great time to do this webinar. Everything is fresh in my mind, so part of the reason I'm doing this really is almost for myself. I'm writing out, I'm outlining basically what I'm going to talk about in the webinar, and a lot of it is going to be good for me when I produce my next film. There's going to be a lot of tips and tricks that are fresh in my mind now that I myself will forget, and I will want to be reminded of that. So this webinar is going to be valuable for me, and hopefully it will be valuable for you as well if you're interested in producing some of your own written material. If this sounds like something you might like to learn about, just go to sellingyourscreenplay.com/class. Again, it's sellingyourscreenplay.com/class. You can get all the details on it, exactly what I'm going to go over, and there's a link there to make payment as well. And of course, I will link to it in the show notes. I mentioned a couple of weeks ago that a producer who I've known for a long time hired me to write a TV show for him. There's always some contractual things that need to happen before I actually start writing. That stuff is all taken care of. The contract is signed. I've been paid. So I'm actually starting to work on that. What this basically entails, when this producer hired me to write the TV series, basically what he needs is a series Bible, and that basically outlines the premise of the show. sort of a broad overview of the first season, and then it has short character descriptions. There's a few more pieces to it than that, but that's sort of the gist of it. It's basically sort of a summation of the show, the story and the characters, and sort of what's going to happen in season 1, and then ultimately what could potentially happen in season 2 and beyond. So I've written that piece, and then the next piece is writing the pilot episode. As I said, I've written the series Bible. It's definitely going to be an evolving document. There's going to be, with anything in film or TV, there's a lot of people, that come on board and help. So we've already started to, the producing partners already started to, bring on other people, and they have ideas. So just the series pilot and, the 3 weeks I've been working on it, it has evolved already. It's gone through several passes. So it will continue to evolve, but I've gotten basically a good draft of that done, which is kind of what we're having. And then I'm going to meet with this producer and his partners tomorrow for lunch. We're going to go over kind of this series Bible, and then I will begin in earnest writing the pilot episode. And that's basically what, he's hired me to do, is the series Bible and the pilot episode. And then if the episode, or if the TV show gets funded, then obviously I would be involved in writing more of those episodes, but then they would have more money. They would, have money to produce the content, and then hopefully have some money to pay the writers as well. So I think this is an exciting opportunity for me. I don't have a lot of experience with TV writing. I've written a little bit. I've written a couple of pilot episodes, or I've written a couple of TV episodes over the years, but not a lot. These were the first pilots, series Bibles, the first series Bible that I wrote. So just learning about that. So it's fun just to do something new. I think there's definitely, a lot of similarities to feature film writing, but definitely some interesting new pieces as well. And I've worked with this producer for quite a while. He's optioned a few projects from me over the years. None of those projects ever went anywhere, but we maintained a good relationship. He helped me a lot on the pinch, not for any money or credit or anything, but he's just been kind of a real nice guy to me whenever I've had questions in producing. He's got a lot of experience producing, much bigger movies in the pinch, but there were moments where I kind of didn't know what to do. For example, with insurance, getting the workers' comp insurance is complicated. At least here in California, by law, you have to have that kind of stuff. And there were some complexities with that I just never dealt with, obviously never having produced a feature film. And, I was able to call him up and just ask him questions. So that's kind of how that relationship has developed. And then he had he had another friend who had this idea. This is kind of a gritty thriller type of a script. Some of the stuff that he's liked, some of the material he's read of mine that he's liked, has been sort of gritty thriller material, so he thought I would be a good fit for it. And as I said, this guy who had the idea, as he's worked with this producer before, and so we all kind of got together and started to flesh out this idea. And then, as I said, now I've written up the series pilot. So just a long-standing relationship I've had with this producer is what kind of led to getting this particular gig. So anyway, that's what I'm working on today. So now let's get into the main segment. Today I'm interviewing writer-director Joe Taylor. Here is the interview. Welcome, Joe, to the Selling Your Screenplay podcast. I really appreciate you coming on the show with me today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So to start out, maybe you can tell us a little bit about your background. Where did you grow up, and how did you get interested in the entertainment industry?
Sure. So I grew up in the Pacific Northwest, around Vancouver, Washington, which is close to Portland. I started doing stand-up comedy about 5 years ago, and I did that kind of to help my writing. I really wanted to get into writing and writing for TV and stuff. So I went out and started doing stand-up to kind of help with that, and it definitely has. Talk about immediate feedback on whether or not your jokes are any good. So I started doing that, and I started writing some specs and stuff, and eventually it was time to just move down here and really give it a go. So I've been here now for about 2.5 years, and just making little steps towards having more of a creative career. Still working a day job and stuff, but finally starting to get some traction with my writing and filmmaking. So it's been a pretty productive couple of years down here.
Perfect. So let's dig into your short film, Last Call, which you wrote and directed. Maybe to start out, you can give us just a quick pitch or a logline for that film.
Yeah, so there's a bartender who's eager to get out of there and get home. It's a slow night. He wants to get home to his girlfriend. And one guy comes in sort of as he's closing, And as the film goes on, we find out this guy is a little bit of a shady character. And there's a little bit of conflict with him wanting to stay and the bartender wanting to go home.
Okay, perfect. Where did this idea come from? I'm just curious what's sort of the genesis of this story.
Sure. So I had been watching, some Alfred Hitchcock and some Twilight Zone, and I really like the short form thriller type of thing, 20 minutes and under, or even 15 minutes and under. I thought that was a really cool capsule for a thriller, where it's just kind of a short story and a twist, and that's it. So I wanted to write something like that, and I also, kind of in the back of my mind, thought that maybe I could produce something like that myself. So that was kind of the origin of it, I guess.
Okay. And I'm curious, from watching it, you got a lot of production value out of the bar that you used. Was that something you knew you had before you were writing it? Was that sort of an integral part of the story? Or did you write the story and then have to go out and find the bar to shoot it at?
Yeah, finding the location was by far the toughest part. I've got an Excel spreadsheet somewhere with probably 30 different bars on it. We went and visited a lot of places. And, the thing about being in LA is that a lot of places have been used for filming locations, and they're used to getting thousands of dollars from CBS or whoever. So when we went in there and offered them, $200 or whatever it was, they weren't too interested. But the place we ended up finding was out in West Covina, and they were very open to it. And we basically just had to pay one of their employees to kind of sit there while we were there, which was 2 days. And he was just kind of sitting in the corner, falling asleep and watching movies and stuff. So they were very cool to let us shoot there. But yeah, that took a long time to find. That probably took a month of searching just to get that bar. But no, I hadn't even been in there before, so I hadn't really pictured a specific bar. But it ended up, we got exactly kind of what I had in mind after a lot of searching. So it worked out pretty good.
And why were they willing to allow you essentially to shoot there for free, just to pay their employee? What was sort of the incentive? They just thought it was a cool project. They just said, why not?
I guess. I mean, I'm not really sure. I think the employee was just sort of the manager there, and he probably went to the owner and just wanted to make a little extra money. So, and they actually don't open until 6 o'clock at night. So we went in there basically from 6 in the morning until 5 p.m. And I guess they just figured it wasn't going to disrupt anything, and it was a little extra money for one of their employees. And of course, we thank them in the credits and on social media and stuff. But the place was called the Chatterbox, by the way. It's a very cool spot out in West Covina.
Okay, yeah, good to know.
A little plug for them.
Yeah, that's good to know. A lot of filmmakers might be running out to West Covina after this podcast. So maybe you can talk a little bit about the budget. What was your total budget for this short film?
I think we ended up spending about $3,000 on the short, and then another, $1,000 probably in just applying to festivals and stuff. It ended up being pretty expensive. I think we applied to 40, festivals, but it was about $3,000. And I went into it. I'm a big fan of the Duplass brothers, like most filmmakers are. And, they have kind of a theory about if you start with a budget, you're going to spend all of it and probably more. If you start with, $0, then you're going to only spend what you need. And, I went into it just figuring I would kind of pay for things as we needed to pay for them. And I figured that's about how much it would cost, but we didn't do a line item budget or anything. I work as a line producer occasionally and am used to kind of working the other way. But for this, it was just like, what do we need? And things came up, and, fortunately we had enough to pay for just about everything we needed. So, and it, the thing about paying for it pretty much all myself was that we did have to take a little time with post and stuff. I mean, it wasn't like, unfortunately we didn't have all that money sitting up front to just spend immediately. So it took, 3 or 4 months, I think, to get the whole thing done. Yeah. Including post, coloring and all that. But it came out I think pretty good. So.
Yeah, no doubt. So maybe you can just in sort of broad strokes break down that. So $1,000 went to film festivals. Break down that $3,000, and it doesn't have to be specific to a person, but like how much was for production, how much was for post production of the $3,000.
Yeah. So we spent, I guess it was about $500 all in all on location, 400 or 500 on that. Then we had to rent some lenses from Borrow Lenses. That was probably $150, $200. We rented a bunch of stuff from Wooden Nickel. That was maybe $200 or $300. The editing probably cost about $1,000. We got a pretty good editor, so that was a big chunk of it. We got it colored for $300 by a great colorist named Mike Halpern. And then we got the sound. The sound was actually a big chunk of it because there was a lot of editing to be done, sound editing, and some mixing and stuff. So we got that done, I think, for another $800. And $600 of that was the initial cost. Then a friend of mine who edits features and stuff took a look at it. The film was originally about 13 and a half minutes. And once this guy went through it, he cut about 2.5 minutes out of it. And, even as the writer and director, I can't even remember what he cut out. I mean, it was good choices, whatever he made. So we had to then go back and kind of redo part of the sound and cut the same parts out. So that was another $200. So post was $2,000 out of that $3,000 that we spent. Fortunately, the director of photography, he had just finished at AFI and he was looking to do a short. So he worked basically for free. And the two actors were willing to work basically for free too. So, that probably saved another $2,000 or whatever it would have been worth to get the camera and everything like that too for free.
Yeah. And do you know what kind of camera your DP was using?
Yeah, he had a Canon C200 or C100. I'm sorry, okay. It was C100.
Yeah. I'm not that up on all the cameras and stuff. People always ask those kinds of questions, like what kind of camera was it shot on? So there's our answer on that. So let's just talk about how you cast these actors. Were these actors that you knew before? How did you actually physically find actors, and did you hold casting sessions? Maybe just run through that part of pre-production.
Sure. So the guy that played Ben, his actual name is Ben, and I did know him before. We had some mutual friends. So when I wrote the script, I sort of had him in mind, at least his voice and stuff, kind of his look. I had no idea if he would even be willing to do it when I wrote it, but he was obviously, willing to do it. And then we brought in a few people, I think 3 or 4 people was all for Gary. And Ben actually recommended, and who came in for that part. They had taken some acting classes together, so when they read together, they already had a pretty good chemistry. So that was, kind of an obvious choice once I saw the two of them together to go that way with them. And then the other people, the 2 newscasters, that was actually pretty tough to cast. I think we just put out a breakdown for that and saw maybe a dozen people for those 2 parts. And the extra, there's like a quick shot of an extra, the lady that was in the bar, and I just found her on Craigslist or something, and she was the only one I think we had to pay.
Okay. Yeah. And for people that are not in LA, they may not have heard of the breakdown services, but it's basically just a casting service that you can put your ad into. And I did the same thing on my feature film. I used breakdown services, and pretty much every actor is piped into that, represented and unrepresented. So you will get the whole gamut of people submitting on that.
I was going to say, if you put something on there, if there's filmmakers listening, if you put something on Breakdown Express or Actors SYS, everybody in town is pretty much going to see quality of response than trying to cast something through Craigslist.
Yeah, for sure. So maybe we can talk about just the crew that you had on this. Just looking at the credit on for Last Call on IMDb, it seems like you kind of had the main positions covered, and so maybe you can quickly just talk about who was actually on set on the days of production.
Sure. So there was the DP, Derek Cohen, who was amazing. There was, let's see, there was two, Oscar Rowe and Ben Bowen. They were great. One of them was basically supporting Derek the whole time, and the other guy, Ben, was kind of moving lights around and stuff. I think Ben was only there 1 out of the 2 days, so we just had one grip the second day. Then there was myself and the 2 actors, and that was it. I mean, it was a really small crew.
Did you have a first AD and a guy recording sound?
Oh yeah, I'm sorry. We did have a sound guy, Rob Spence. He was very good.
So let's talk about the film festivals for a minute.
Yeah. So we had applied. I mean, we've applied probably to 40 or submitted to about 40 of them, of all sizes. I mean, we applied to Cannes and to Sundance and all that stuff. We didn't get into those, but the first one we got into was Portland, which was cool because that was very close, to my family and friends and stuff. So the first screening of it in a theater, I was able to have my family and friends there, up in the Northwest. And then I think the second one was maybe Cal Shorts, which was a really small one. And most of these have been really small. The biggest one we've gotten into so far is next week, or actually it's going on now, the Newport Beach Film Festival. So I'm pretty excited about that. I'm going to go down there for a couple of days and try and catch some of the other films. But it's a pretty big festival. I mean, there's buyers there. The documentary that won the Academy Award, I think, screened there last year. So there's some big films and buyers and stuff. So that'll be the biggest one we've gotten into, and there's probably another 5 or 6 festivals we haven't heard back from that are coming up. Announcement dates are still coming up. So.
Yeah. Now, do you think that these film festivals have helped you career-wise? Have they helped get you some more attention on this film? What would you say your experience just overall has been with the festival circuit?
Yeah, I mean, at these small festivals, there hasn't been a lot of networking type of stuff. But I think what's really helped is getting the laurels and getting them on the poster. And when people see that, I think there's a lot of added credibility to your filmmaking. I mean, just to have something done that you can show people has gotten me a lot of conversations and some work. But to be able to get into festivals and get through some filters, I feel like I have some credibility now as a filmmaker, whereas before, just being a writer, I think it's a lot harder to get work until you've actually produced something that you can show people.
Yeah, for sure. So what is next for you?
So I'm working on a feature right now. I just got through a first draft, which is actually a drama. And it's funny, with my background doing comedy and writing comedy and stuff, I also contribute to a show at Second City called After Dark with Julian Clark, and it airs on Amazon. And so that's like my comedy outlet, but it seems like a lot of the writing that I've been doing lately is actually drama and thriller type of stuff. And honestly, I think they're kind of the same thing. I think comedy and thrillers are very. It's all about subverting expectation, and in comedy and stakes and that type of thing. So I like writing both. But the next thing for me is to try and get backing for this feature. If the opportunity came up to just sell it, I probably would at this point in my career, but I would like to make something myself. At this point, I think maybe the outside track, the way that I'm going to pursue and making things myself, rather than trying to get into the studio system, the writing fellowships or something. I think that's a tougher, or even to go work as a PA or something and try and get into a writer's room. I think my best bet is, the outside track. So that's what I'm working on next.
Okay, perfect, perfect. How can people see Last Call? You want to talk about just where it is available?
Yeah, so I actually have sold Last Call twice. Once was to Screening Now, which is a really cool website. I think a lot of the subscriptions to that are still free because they're pretty new. But you can go to Screening Now and you can watch Last Call with the free subscription on their website. And there's a lot of really cool other independent shorts and even some features, I believe, on Screening Now. And then the other thing we did is we sold it to Shorts TV, which is a channel, I think it's 563 on DirecTV, and they're broadcast internationally. So that'll start, I think, in July or August. It'll be available on that channel on DirecTV. So, and they're two different sets of rights. That's how we were able to do that. But and honestly, neither of them paid a whole lot, but it was something, to be something and recoup some of the costs anyway was a pretty cool thing.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, nobody really expects to make much money off a short film, so just being able to recoup anything, I'd say, is a big win.
Yeah, it was really just a resume piece, was the idea. And actually, I'll mention real quick kind of how I decided to make it myself. So I wrote it and I put it up on ISA, which is a website where people put things that they're trying to sell, and production companies can go look for things. I got several responses to it from the ISA website, and two different companies, small production companies, had approached me about making it, and both of those fell through. But based on the number of responses that I got, even just people that were interested in reading it, I kind of knew at that point that there was something there, and once I started thinking about it a little more, that's when I kind of decided to take it myself. And since then I've put other things up on ISA and gotten very little or no response, and that's why I haven't produced anything of any significance since then. But I'd say just getting things out there and getting someone to write coverage on it. I know you offer a little plug for your services too. I got coverage from your company on something, and it was great. I mean, it was one of the best and most useful coverages I've ever gotten.
Oh, well, thank you.
But getting things out there and yeah, I definitely recommend it. I'm going to be using it again on my feature. But getting it out there and getting real honest feedback from people that don't know you and don't care about your feelings, that's, I think, the way to really tell if you've got something. And if you've got something, then if you're able to make it yourself, I mean, that's a great way to go, or get somebody to back it and have control of it. I really appreciated having control from the writing through post-production to the very end of this project. And it's hard to imagine kind of letting go of a lot of that process if you just sell something. I mean, who knows what they're going to do with it or what it's going to end up looking like.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. So what's the best way for people to keep up with what you're doing? If you're on Twitter, Facebook, a blog, anything you're comfortable sharing, I'll just list that in the show notes.
Sure. So Last Call has its own Facebook page, which is Last Call Short 2016. People can go there for updates on that. And then I have a Twitter, and it's mostly to promote my comedy shows and stuff, but people can see on there kind of what I'm up to, making some sketches and that type of stuff too. And that's the Twitter is at Joe Taylor Haha. That's the Twitter handle.
Perfect.
And yeah, and my Instagram is the Instagram is Joe Tay, Joetay 1010, and that's a lot of this updates are on all of those platforms.
Okay, perfect. Well, I will round all that stuff up, and I'll put that in the show notes so people can get to that easily. Thank you, Joe, very much. I really appreciate your coming on the show with me today.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Ashley, and I'll see you around maybe at Deadline Junkies or somewhere very soon.
Yeah. Now, are you planning on coming back to Deadline Junkies?
I'd like to. I keep telling myself I'm going to. I've been working on some some sketches, and that's been taking up a lot of evening during the week. But yeah, one of these days I will get back there, and it'll be nice to catch up with everybody.
Yeah. How did you originally find Deadline Junkies?
I don't exactly remember. It was right after I moved here, and I think there was a posting on Craigslist about a writers group looking a couple. That's probably what I responded to initially, and I think I actually responded maybe a couple different times over a few months, because you had to submit a writing sample, I think, to begin with, and then since then too, I've actually done another short that was in VR, 360. It was 360 degree thing that was written by a guy there, Philip, and then we actually cast Socrates, who's an actor who goes there all the time. I would highly recommend getting involved in a writers group, and I'm sure they're all over the country. Obviously, there's a lot of them in LA, but that's been a huge source of networking and even casting and working with people since I've gone there.
Yeah, for sure, Joe. Well, yeah, definitely. If you're going to come back to Deadline Junkies, you could drop me an email. Me and Adam and Dan always go for dinner beforehand. You'd be welcome to join us. We usually meet around 6 at the theater, and then we just walk to a local restaurant. So if you're ever down for that, just let me know.
That sounds great.
Cool, man, Joe. Well, I wish you luck with this. I'm glad that Ray was able to get us in contact here.
Yeah, that was nice of him, and check out Screening Now. They've got some really good stuff on there.
Yep, perfect. Sounds good, Joe. I'll talk to you later.
All right, thanks, Ashley. See ya.
Bye. Just want to mention 2 things I'm doing at Selling Your Screenplay to help screenwriters find producers who are looking for material. First, I've created a monthly newsletter that will be sent directly to producers. Every member of SYS Select can submit 1 logline per newsletter. I went and emailed my large database of producers and asked them if they would like to receive this monthly newsletter of pitches. So far, I have around 400 producers who have signed up to receive it. These are producers hungry for material and happy to read scripts from new writers. So if you want to participate in this pitch newsletter and get your script into the hands of lots of producers, sign up at sellingyourscreenplay.com. Sign up at sellingyourscreenplayselect.com. That goes directly to the sellingyourscreenplay.com page. Again, that's sellingyourscreenplayselect.com. And secondly, I partnered with one of the premier paid screenwriting lead sites so I can syndicate their leads to SYS Select members. There are lots of great paid leads coming in each week from our partner. Recently, I've been getting 5 to 10 high-quality paid screenwriting leads per week. These are producers and production companies who are actively looking to buy material or are looking to hire a screenwriter for a specific project. If you sign up for SYS Select, you'll get these leads emailed directly to you several times per week. These leads run the gamut from production companies looking for a specific type of spec script to producers looking to hire a screenwriter to write up one of their ideas or properties. Producers are looking for shorts, features, TV, and web series pilots. It's a huge array of different types of projects that these producers are looking for, and these leads are exclusive to our partner and SYS Select members. To sign up, go to sellingyourscreenplayselect.com. Again, that's sellingyourscreenplayselect.com. And that URL is just basically a forwarding URL, and it just will send you to the proper page on sellingyourscreenplay.com. So again, that's sellingyourscreenplayselect.com. On the next episode of the podcast, I'm going to be interviewing writer Michael Lurker. He's been working as a writer for decades and has written a number of animated films like Spirit, Stallion of the Cimarron and Mulan 2. He has a great story about arriving in Hollywood and working as an assistant in the office with Steven Spielberg and how he got Spielberg to read one of his early scripts. So keep an eye out for that episode next week. To wrap things up, I just want to touch on a few things from today's interview with Joe. Once again, I hope people have been finding these interviews with short filmmakers valuable. I really believe that doing a short film is a great way to learn about the filmmaking process. There are very few guarantees in this business, but one guarantee that I can give you, if you go out and make a short film, at the very, very least, you'll come away as a better writer and or filmmaker. So that's the least you're going to get out of this experience. But there's also quite a bit of more potential upside. You're going to meet people. You are going to, obviously you're going to learn. Your short film could potentially take off and lead to other projects, other people. You could go to film festivals with your short film, other producers, other distributors. They could see this film. They could hire you as a writer, as a director, as a filmmaker. So there's almost an infinite number of upside, and there's really very, very little downside. And that's just a great position to be in. Getting out there and doing things really is the key to advancing your career. Again, I can tell you from doing my own micro budget film, The Pinch, which, keep in mind, it's not even finished at this point, but it's opened up lots and lots of doors for me. Since directing The Pinch, I've had 2 producers offer me the chance to direct their short films, and this is without having seen The Pinch. So it's just the old saying, hustle is contagious. And when people see you hustling, other people will be attracted to that and want to be involved. Again, these were just kind of random things, but I've had some people that I've dealt with before over the years. They saw I was doing The Pinch. They were producers. They were working on short films. And, oh, come and direct our thing. It wasn't necessarily something that I don't really consider myself a great director. I consider myself more of a writer than a director. So I didn't feel he was necessarily a good fit. But again, these were opportunities that just came to me. I also met an actor who does some producing as well on The Pinch. He ended up acting in The Pinch. He's also a producer. So I've gotten to know him a little bit. And now we're working on a project together. I've mentioned my my low budget thriller that I wrote last spring, or late winter and spring. That script I'm working on with him, and so that's probably going to be the next thing that I write and produce and maybe even direct. Again, that will probably be the project. And again, in large part, that is because I met this guy, this actor, on the set of The Pinch. So again, it's just really, things can happen when you're out there doing stuff. The producer I mentioned with the TV series, he hired me to write this TV series. One of the things that he also offered, sort of dangled as a carrot, hey, you know, we'll pay you some money to write this series up, but we'll also, as some, I wouldn't say compensation, but also one of the things we will give you is they're going to let me direct an episode or 2 of this series. So again, that's because I went out and directed The Pinch. He feels more comfortable offering me this opportunity. Hey, we'll let you direct an episode or 2. And again, these are just small, subtle things, but it's really, and again, he has seen the rough cut of The Pinch, so maybe he feels somewhat confident that I did at least a competent job on The Pinch. But you know, The Pinch isn't even done, and some of these opportunities are sort of kind of coming to me. I've talked about this on the podcast before. One of my big reasons for doing The Pinch was because I always felt like a lot of these low budget feature films that I've been paid to write, a lot of times they go out and they start looking for a director. And if I have a resume as a director, I would be able to talk to them and say, hey, well, what about me? Why can't I direct this film? And that's kind of exactly what happened with this TV show. Again, it's just a little bit of energy. TV show may never get funded, may never go anywhere, but again, I'm in the conversation of, hey, what about directing one of these episodes? And that's all because I just went out and just did something without waiting for someone to give me the money. I just went out and did it on my own. And again, I know a lot of people listening to this podcast, they don't necessarily have experience producing, so going and trying to do a feature film is probably beyond the scope of what some people can do. But the first step to that is doing a few short films. Start with a low budget, 2, 3, 4, 5-minute short film. Learn the process and then slowly build from there. It won't take you that long to get to the point where you're doing feature films. Again, I will link to Joe's film in the show notes. As I mentioned, this is the 3rd installment of my short film showcase. I will link to those episodes as well, the other 2 episodes. Episode 170 is exactly what I was just talking about as far as just starting with something very, very cheaply. Episode 170 is a filmmaker named Mark Hanley. His short film, he literally spent about $200. His short film is pretty cool. I think it's about 5 minutes, and it's just really, really well done. And for essentially no money, most of the people, hopefully, listen to this podcast, they can afford to spend and, you know, lose $200, especially on something that is furthering their career and furthering their dreams as a screenwriter, potentially as a director and as a producer as well. Start small and build from there. There's no downside. I mean, $200 is virtually nothing. If you go and sign up for a college class, you're going to pay a lot more than $200 for any kind of a college filmmaking or directing class. You're going to pay a lot more than $200, and you're not going to learn as much, and you're not going to get as much out of it. So this is a great investment in yourself. You know, again, look at what Joe did. He spent $4,000, and that's probably more than I would recommend if you've never done this before. Joe has some experience, so it seemed like a wise investment for him, and hopefully that will pay dividends down the road. But start small. The longest journey starts with the first step, and I think, as I said, episode 170 with Mark Henley, I think it's such a great example of what you can do with very limited resources, and there's no excuse. I mean, he shot it on his iPad. If you're listening to this podcast, you probably have everything you need to actually go out and make a short film. So there's really, the only excuse is that, you're not willing to do the work, and you're not willing to go out there and try and make things happen for yourself. And again, not trying to be negative. Maybe producing isn't your thing. Maybe that's not what you want to do, but I just would really encourage you to think outside the box and just think about how can you get stuff done. Maybe you can find a producer. Maybe you can write a bunch of super low budget short film scripts. I've mentioned this before. Go on Craigslist in the Los Angeles section, under the writing gig section, and you type in, screenplay or screenwriting. You will find producers looking for short film scripts. So again, if producing isn't your thing, you can still think about this, and you can still be involved in this by writing these types of scripts that people can produce quickly and easily, 5-minute, 3-minute, 8-minute short films. And there's producers and directors who are not writers. And so maybe you can meet up with one of them. Again, if producing and directing isn't something you actually want to do. I still think that these are great experiences, great learning experiences. You meet people, you meet producers. That producer who's producing a $200 short film right now, 5 years, 10 years down the road, he might be producing a $2 million feature film. And those are the people you need to meet early in their careers, and your career can grow with them. So again, it's just really all about going out there and trying to make things happen, not waiting for permission. I get so many emails from people, and they're like, oh, I sent it into a few contests, and I didn't win the contest, or I didn't place highly in the contest. And it's like, that's just not enough. That's not enough to get your career going. And you've got to do more. And this is all part of marketing. I mean, and this is why I started Selling Your Screenplay, hopefully to help people with this aspect of the process, getting out there and doing things, entering contests, using the blacklist, using Inktip, using my own service, producing your own stuff. Doing all of these things is really what's going to get you down the road, kick that can down the road a little bit and move your career forward. Just sitting in your room and continuously writing stuff, entering a few contests. No matter how good your scripts are, I don't know that will really ever pay off. You never know. It's Hollywood, and so as soon as someone says that will never work, that's exactly when it might work. But if you don't want to just sort of sit around and wait for somebody to call you, or wait for someone to give you permission to go be a writer, I think doing what Joe is doing and these other short filmmakers is doing is a great idea. Anyway, that's the show. Thank you for listening.